إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوكل عليه فأما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما آمين يا رب العالمين. I welcome you all to lesson 2 of Tajweed. أهلا وسهلا مرحبا. Let's make our intention sincere for sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because whatever is done for His sake, the reward is preserved for the afterlife. And whatever is done for the sake of dunya, it's lost in dunya. So let's make sure that we are learning to recite Quran beautifully to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to draw closer to Him. And praise of no human being should corrupt our intention, inshallah. Let's do a quick review of what we studied in the previous lesson. We talked about science of Tajweed. So Tajweed is basically the knowledge, the field of studying the proper pronunciation of the words of Quran. And what technically it means is that we learn makharij of huruf and of the Arabic alphabet, and also we learn the proper pronunciation of them along with their sifat, so we can give haqq of every letter and every haraka. And then there are unique things that we must learn how to recite Quran properly, and it's all part of the Tajweed. Secondly, we learn about ista'adha wal basmala. So ista'adha was the statement, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and it's the etiquettes of saying it, when should we say it, and how basmala should be said, how the both together should be said in the beginning of the recitation. And we learned 4 ways of saying it. Even if you adopt one, implement for the rest of your life, you'll be good, inshallah. And then we learned etiquettes of saying basmala in the middle of 2 surahs. So the wrong way was when we joined the basmala with the end of the previous surah. This should not be done. Other 3 ways were correct. So you can take break, you can take a breath in the middle of all 3. End of the surah basmala and then the beginning of the surah, or you can join them all 3 together, or join basmala with the next surah. Then we talked about speed of recitation. So there are maratibul qira'at, the 3 levels, tahqiq, tadwir, and hadr. So very slow recitation, in which the purpose is to learn to implement the rules of tajweed, go slow, focus on every letter and every haraka. Then there is a second speed, which is the normal medium speed, in which we are most of the recitations we find are on tadwir. And then it's hadr, which is a very fast-paced recitation. So for our daily recitation, we should adopt tadwir. But hadr is a fast-paced recitation, which is, people who are loving Quran and they want to recite a lot of Quran in a day, they can recite fast. And there is an allowance, and also huffaz who have to review a lot. So hadr is allowed, but as far as we are in all 3 levels of recitation, we're giving the haqq of recitation. We're saying every letter and haraka clearly. We are applying all the sifat that we learn for letters and applying all the tajweed rules, then inshallah we are good. We talked about 2 mistakes, major and minor mistakes. Lahnul jali, major mistakes that change the meaning of Quran, they must be eliminated by everybody. And then we studied the second mistake was minor mistakes, lahnul khafi. And lahnul khafi are the mistakes that are minor mistakes. Why? Because they don't change the meaning. They do impact the beauty of Quran, beauty of recitation of Quran. So we should try to eliminate it, because we are advised to zayyinul Qur'ana bi aswatikum. So beautify the recitation of Quran with your voice. We should learn tajweed rules to beautify, to obey the command. Then we talked about breathing practice, that is step 1 in order to build stamina, to be able to recite more Quran in one breath. And the adab is the etiquette is to, when you lose your breath, then you pause and then you go back and start from the 2 words before it, unless it's a proper stop mark and you can stop there. And once, inshallah, we learn the detail of waqf, then we'll talk about it, where we can stop, where we cannot stop. So if you're not stopping on a stop mark, then you should go back and you should join with a word or 2 the next part of it. And this is the first step to improve and have fluent recitation. I hope you were able to implement and were able to practice. Inshallah, let's move on and learn some new things. Itmamul harakat, which means perfecting the vowels. So there are 3 vowels that we should be very careful in pronouncing with their proper sounds. For now, we'll talk about them. Kasra, Dhamma, and Fatha. So when you are saying Kasra, you drop your lower jaw, meaning when you're opening your mouth, you lower your lower jaw and open your lip as well, of course, with your lower jaw, and you make E sound. So this sound should be E, like we hear the sound in B, not a Y sound like clay. It should not be A sound, it should be E sound. So that would be the proper kasra sound. For Dhamma, we should round our lips, make a tight circle from our lips, and make an oo sound. That should give the sound of oo like 2. So it should give oo sound, not O sound like orange. We cannot say O, we should say oo. If we don't circle our lips properly, then it might sound like O. So it has to be a tight circle with the lips to make the proper sound of oo, of the Dhamma. Fatha sound is pronounced by opening the mouth, because Fataha means to open. Similarly, Fatha is pronounced by just opening the mouth. And you open your mouth in a way that you say ah sound in ant, not ant. So you open your mouth upwards, horizontally. So you do not smile. And if you smile when you're saying your Fatha, you open your mouth wider on sideways, then you say ah. The sound will be a sound, not a sound. So open your mouth upwards and say ah. Then it will be correct sound of Fatha, a sound. Because in Arabic, it's extremely important to say these sounds correctly. You will find them on every other letter. So these guys are going to show up, these vowels are going to show up, so you should know how to say them properly. Let's go over a few examples. For Fatha, Kabir. So Kabir, not Kabir, not Kabir, Kabir, Khabir, not Khabir, Khabir. Open your mouth, Kha. And also for Al-Alamin, it's not Al-Alamin, it's Al-Alamin. If you do not pronounce these harakas properly and you make a sound which is kind of in the middle of Fatha and Kasra, then in other qira'ats, specific words have imala and taqleel, and then you sound like them. Whereas Imam Hafs and Asim and Tariq al-Shatibiyya, there's only one place in Quran which is read with imala, which is majreha, and no other word. So we should make sure that we are saying al-Fatha with the proper sound and Kasra with the proper sound. Yash'urun. For Dhamma, Yash'urun, not Yash'urun. It's Yash'urun. Ulaik. Na'budu. Na'budu. For Kasra, it's Al-Muflihun. Li. Li sound, not Le sound. It's not Al-Muflihun, it's Al-Muflihun. E sound. Qablik. Al-Maghdubi, not Al-Maghdubi. Al-Maghdubi, thin sound, E sound for kasra. If you notice, every letter that has haraka has a certain timing. Kha, ka, all mutaharrik letters have same timing. So we should make sure that we give that timing to every mutaharrik letter. The mutaharrik letter is that has a haraka on it. But the marqashra, when it has sukun on it, for example, this ayn or sheen, then the timing of every letter differentiates. It varies from a letter to letter depending on which category it falls to. And we'll study that in Sifat, inshallah. Let's study makharij al-huruf. Makharij, it's a plural of makhraj, and makhraj is the articulation point of letters. And all the Arabic alphabets, they have a specific makhraj. So there are 29 letters. Every letter has a specific makhraj, and that makhraj, the specific articulation point, helps us pronounce the sound of that letter properly. If we don't know, then we might be pronouncing it from the wrong makhraj, and our letter might not sound exactly the same, the way it should sound in the accent of an Arab. So practicing, how to practice or pinpoint an articulation point, we'll do it in 3 steps. So every time you're practicing your letters, your makharij, you'll place a hamza before it, put a fatha on it, and then place a sukun on the letter. So when you do that, then you practice that specific letter. So ayn, makhraj of ayn, or ha, or any letter. Ba, ab. Place a hamza with a fatha before it, and then sukun on the letter that you're practicing the makhraj for. Once you know the makhraj, then you will see how it will help you, inshallah. Because the muscles, they strengthen with the practice, and if you don't use them, they become weak. And only if you keep practicing and you keep using those specific points, it's all the game of muscles. So if you are using them properly from the specific point, then inshallah your pronunciation for letters will be correct. Second level would be where you practice the letter with the fatha, dhamma, and kasra. So you place fatha, dhamma, and kasra on a letter, and you practice that specific letter with that. E. Now you're combining the sound, the makhraj of a letter with the haraka. So you have to open your mouth for fatha, but ayn you have to involve the makhraj. So similarly, ha, he, hu, you have to practice every letter with haraka. So that will be second level. Now apply that in your daily recitation. Once you have practiced a letter, take one letter at a time, practice for 2 days, and then see how you're doing. Then start working on another one. And most of the makharij are easy. Few letters are a little bit difficult. And it's all about remembering what we learned. So when we implement and we have reminders, then inshallah we will be able to practice. And I'll share pictures on the way where you can have all makharij. There are marked all makharij there. If you forget a makharij, then you can just as a reference see where to look, and you will remember that, inshallah. So first, let's go over all the makharij one at a time. So there are 29 letters, and 17 of them come from the tongue. There are 5 major areas that all letters are divided in. First one is al-Jawf. Jawf is the hollow area, the hollow passage between the mouth and the throat. See how it runs from the mouth to the throat? This whole hollow place. This empty space is called al-Jawf, and it has 3 letters. Then al-Halq, it has 6 letters, and it has 3 articulation points. Then al-Lisan, as I told you, it has a lot of articulation points and 17 letters. We'll go over them inshallah later. Today we'll be covering other 4 areas. Ash-Shafatan, the 2 lips. So the 2 lips, there are 4 letters that come out from the 2 lips. Al-Khayshum, it's the nasal cavity, and we'll go over what comes from Khayshum, inshallah. So first al-jawf, the first makhraj, letters of empty space in the mouth, as I told you. So there's an empty space in the mouth. And when you talk about this empty space, there are only 3 letters that come out of it, and they're specific. They're called huruf al-maddiyah. That's alif al-maddiyah, waw al-maddiyah, and ya al-maddiyah. Any alif that has no haraka on it, so all these 3 letters that don't have any haraka on it, you will not see any sukoon on it either. They are preceded by a fatha. So the letter before these letters has a fatha, if before alif, not all letters. Just fatha followed by an alif is alif al-maddiyah. Nara. So here are examples. Nara. See, this alif has no haraka on it, and it is attached to nun, and nun has fatha on it. An-nas. Similarly here as well. This is alif mad. So this alif mad is coming from al-jawf. And these 3 letters are also called long vowels. See how we did harakat, fatha, dhamma, kasra? So notice fatha, dhamma, and kasra are here, and then they give 2 times of a letter. And we talked about every mutaharrik letter has a certain specific timing. So when we have fatha and we elongate it, we say na. We say na, 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 ni, nu, na, nu, ni. So waw al-maddiyah is a vowel that has no haraka on itself, but the letter before it has a dhamma. You're elongating the sound of dhamma into 2 counts. And ya al-maddiyah is a ya, which has no haraka on it, and the letter before has a kasra. So these 3 letters, they have a space to come from jawf, and the position of the tongue changes depending on the letter because they go close to the makhraj of the letter. So yufsidun, this waw here is an example of waw al-maddiyah. Khalidun, this waw here as well. See, it has a dhamma before it. For kasra, yahdi, these are the words taken from Quran. This word has al-fasiqeen. This ya, madiyah, has no haraka on it, and then there is a kasra under qaf. There are small alif here. There are examples of alif mad as well. For example, kha is followed by alif, fa is followed by alif. So these are alif madi as well. Okay, alhamdulillah. So these 3 letters come from jawf, the hollow cavity, the hollow place in the mouth and the throat. Next makhraj is al-halq. It has 3 articulation points. Adna al-halq is the closest, the part of the throat that is closest to the mouth. So 2 letters come from this place, the kha and ghain. And if you notice, the kids who are young and they start reciting, usually you can't differentiate between the ghain and kha unless they practice it and you help them make and practice and differentiate between the sound of both letters, gha, aw, and ah. So you have to practice this makhraj in order to make the sound of these letters clear and differentiable. Then there are 2 letters that come from wasatul halq, and that's the part where tongue is attached right behind it. See this extra skin? It presses, and this place vibrates, and this is where these letters come from, a and ha. And I think these are the most difficult makharij for non-Arabs. You have to practice and constantly practice. If you don't use the makhraj, it will slip within a week or 2. So you have to really stay active, think about it. Whenever you're reciting Quran, you make sure that you're reciting your ayn and ha from the proper makhraj. Otherwise, your ayn will sound like alif mad because it will come from the hollow place instead of coming from the makhraj. And aqsal halq, the deepest part of the throat, there are 2 letters that come from it. It's hamza and ha. And when you say ha, and you do not differentiate between this ha and this ha, which is from the deeper throat, you will see that they sound the same. people have usually a middle kind of sound between both ha, because they don't activate this makhraj for ha, which comes from the middle of the throat, and they don't pay attention that they have to differentiate. So when you practice your ha and ha, practice them together, so you are able to differentiate between the sound of both letters, ha and ha. See how there's a difference. They're not ha. They're not kind of in the middle. Ha and ha. And when you practice with the sukoon and fatha, dhamma, and kasra, inshallah, they will polish. The next articulation point is ash-shafatan. So it is the two lips. 4 letters come out from ash-shafatan. Let's talk about fa, because fa comes out from touching of the edge of the upper teeth in the wet part of the lower lip. So if you notice, there's a little blue, and the edge of the upper teeth are touching here. That's the makhraj of fa. If you do not use this makhraj, your fa will sound like wa, because your teeth are not creating that flow sound of fa, af. So you kind of exaggerate when you are practicing, but then later on when you're applying, then you say it properly. When you're reciting, you say it properly and give the timing that it deserves. Other 3 letters that come from the 2 lips are al-waw ghayr madiyya. What is waw ghayr madiyya? Any waw that is mutaharrik is not madiyya, because we talked about waw madiyya has no haraka on it and has dhamma before it. So that's a condition of a waw to be waw madiyya. So if a waw has a fatha before it, it's not waw madiyya. It's those are huruf al-lin, waw and ya preceded by a fatha, and we'll inshallah study about them in detail. So any waw that is not madiyya will come from this makhraj. And how do we say it? We round our lips for waw. That's the makhraj of waw, that we round our lips to make the waw sound. Ow, ow, wa, woo, we. It should not be we, it should be we. There's no W. There should no W sound. We. And mim and ba come from the makhraj of lips as well by touching them. So you softly touch for mim. So the wet part joins together of the lips, and you say But for ba, you have to strongly close your mouth. Ba, ab, ba, bi, bu, ma, mi, mo. And these letters have specific sifats that also help differentiate between them. So inshallah, when we study sifat, we'll study that in detail. Al-Khayshum. This is the nasal passage. So this is the 4th makhraj that we are inshallah going to study today. And nasal passage is called Al-Khayshum. This is the place where the characteristic of gunna comes from. There's no specific, so there's no letter that comes from here. But the 2 letters, mim and noon, they have this sifa of gunna that come from noon. You cannot pronounce mim and noon properly if you close your nose. So try closing your nose and reading you cannot read it, because for mim and noon, the sound has to pass through the nose, and then the sound of mim and noon will become clear. Aminu. And specifically, there are many different categories of gunna that inshallah we'll study in detail when we're studying sifat, and later on as well when we're studying some individual idgham, inshallah. So here is an example of mim mushaddad. I want you to pay special attention here for mim mushaddad and noon mushaddad for now to practice. Falamma. So you hold the mim and you make sure your nose vibrates with it. When you hold the makhraj of mim and you let the sound pass from the nose, then there'll be a gunna sound. Falamma. And you have to give 2 counts to that for the gunna. Amanna. So your gunna sound becomes clear, your makhraj is blocked, and your sound is flowing from the nose, and that's how it will be taking place. Make sure you do not elongate your gunna into alif mad, because alif mad does not have gunna in it. It's not amanna, it's not amanna, it's amanna. Alif mad has a makhraj of jawf, not khayshum. The sound of alif mad should only pass from the mouth, coming from the throat, should not pass through the nose. So make sure that you are giving special attention to that, inshallah. So we have done a couple of makharij. Make sure you practice them. There are a few things that I want you to pay attention, inshallah, throughout this week when you're practicing. There are a few habits that you should develop. You should start reciting Quran every day for 10 to 15 minutes. So no matter young or old, and we should get our kids get used to reciting every day for 10 to 15 minutes. Anyway, from the very young age, once they know how to recite Quran, they learn it from a Qari, then you should make sure that they are reciting. They're developing the habit of reciting Quran every day. So that's why we are doing it, because we want to implement the rules that we're learning in the recitation. What's the point of learning now and just forgetting the rule if we don't implement it? If you don't implement, it will not stay with you. And what you should do is, as soon as you forget, you should go back and review and implement again, inshallah. And make sure when you're reciting Quran, you're doing it calmly in pleasant tone. And if you're old, don't just say, Tajweed is not my deal. Learning is a lifelong journey. So the efforts count. When we put in our effort, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees that, and only He gives barakah. So effort is our part, achievement is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't worry about the achievement. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts your effort, He will inshallah give you achievement as well. And make sure you make dua for yourself as well, that you be able to recite Quran beautifully. And I want you to attach this 10 to 15 minutes of your recitation with the salah. And Fajr is the best time, because we learn from Quran that Quran recitation of Fajr is witnessed, because the angels are changing their shift. So that is the best time to recite Quran. In winter, you can recite, before Fajr, because Fajr is sometimes late. In summers, you can recite after Fajr prayer, but attach it with Fajr prayer, which is really good. If you're not able to, because of responsibilities, even though 10 or 15 minutes are very little, we often just waste them on social media. You can attach it with any prayer. Why I'm specifying it with prayer? So that you make sure that you do it every day, at a specific time every day. Develop a good habit. So when you miss it, you feel sad about it. When you feel sad about it, only then you will make sure that you don't miss it the next time. When we don't feel sad about anything, we don't worry about it. So you have to feel sad about it when you miss it, and make it a habit to recite every day. And when you're reciting, recite it in a loud voice. Your ears should be able to hear your recitation. How would you know that you're pronouncing it correctly if your ears cannot hear it? So make sure that you're reciting in loud voice, so you can judge yourself and see how's your recitation. Is it improving or not? And then if that's not enough, then record your recitation and listen to it as well. As I advise you to practice with the shaykh, listen to the recitation of a Qari that I shared. That Zil.net has a lot of recitations these days. Every app has recitations, so you can pick a recitation and listen to it, and then try practicing with it. And the last thing, if you don't understand Quran from Arabic language, then pick one ayah that your heart is inclined towards from your recitation that you did, and read the translation of it. Then think about it throughout the day, how its meaning connects with your life, and take some lesson for yourself and implement, because the purpose of Quran is guidance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to truly use Quran as it is supposed to be used for guidance. And may Allah give us tawfiq to beautify our recitation as well. That's all for today. Jazakumullahu khairan. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.